I'm just going to get started here. So again, welcome to this afternoon's seminar. This is on behalf of the Boston Society of Architects, Neolith, and myself. My name is Jonathan Berengia, and I'm with Marble and Granite, Inc. And I just thank you for joining us today to learn about what I personally believe is a very exciting product segment with tremendously impressive physical properties with virtually boundless options for applications. Marble and Granite is headquartered in Westwood, Massachusetts. Some of you may know us. We also have other locations in Milford, Connecticut, and Albany, New York. We do have offices in Italy and Brazil that help facilitate much of our buying, and they also assist us with coordinating any special orders that we may have. In 1990, we started as a wholesale distributor of natural stone products. And because of our mission to source and deliver the latest and highest quality materials to the markets that we serve, we introduced quartz surfaces to the New England market back in 1999. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with quartz as it's grown to become one of the most popular countertop materials today. Since the demand has dictated, we now currently carry 3 different offerings in quartz in the brands of Radiance, Santa Margherita, and Vidara quartz. In a similar fashion, our team, again, through the constant pursuit of finding relevant and high quality products to bring to the market, we launched the latest material, which is called Sintered Stone. You're going to hear shortly about this, when we partnered with Neolith in 2011 as their exclusive distributor. So for many of you on this call, this could be a relatively new product segment for you, but you're going to learn a lot about it today from Travis. For us at Marble and Granite, we've been promoting Neolith for almost 10 years. And you're going to hear from Travis Conrad, who works directly for Neolith. He's also a trained architect with an extensive knowledge in building facades. And I always joke with him that he can probably pretty much do this presentation in his sleep. So instead of me presenting and you learning from me, a distributor rep, I felt that it would be an awesome opportunity for you all to hear from an actual manufacturer's rep. And I do ask that you please ask questions through the Q&A or chat at the bottom. I will be moderating and I will be able to see those. And I will be able to interject and stop Travis during his presentation to make sure that we address all of your questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Travis. And I hope everybody enjoys today's presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. As you mentioned, I work directly for the manufacturer. I oversee the projects division of the company. I work on primarily our building exterior applications. But what we're going to touch on today is a little bit of everything. We're going to talk about what Neolith is as a product, its performance characteristics, and then we'll look at some applications of it. As Jonathan mentioned, please feel free to ask questions as we go through. And we're just going to watch a short video here to get started before we get into the non-proprietary part, which will kind of give you an overall general visual of what we do and what we manufacture. And then we'll get into the technicalities of it. And John, if we have any playing issues, just let me know, right? Hey, sorry about that. I just realized I played the Spanish version, so we all got a little brush up in our Spanish there. But I think we generally get the idea. We did have a few questions pop up during that. Carolina asked if we could use Neolith as a baseboard, and we do offer standardized baseboard in 4-inch height and 3-inch height that come with, I believe, a 3 or 4 millimeter bevel, and those are in 1/2-inch thicknesses. And I got another question from Ned, who asks, who fabricates this product? Very good question. It really depends on the application. Primarily when we're doing kitchen and bath, which is our bread and butter, you're gonna see granite and marble shops that do that type of fabrication. They buy the stock sheets and they cut it down to tiles or countertops or whatever it might be. You also have tile fabricators that are able to fabricate it in the field. They're going to use what's called the score and snap technique, which is done, like I said, in the field, where they score it with a diamond tipped wheel, pull it to the edge of a table, and snap a slab into a tile that we'll touch on through the presentation. And then lastly, we get into more sophisticated engineered solutions providers, building exterior rain screen solutions, elevator cab manufacturers, and they fabricate it for specialty use. And all of those options on a grander scale are available fabricated directly from the factory as well too. Did I touch on everything on that? So if I answer them in writing, verbally, John, do you want to actually give the answer in writing? There you go. Perfect. Thanks, John. It's like I'm talking to a mind, not talking back. Okay, so let's get right into it. Like I said, I encourage everybody to ask questions as we go through. That's what we're here to do, is to answer the questions that you guys might have. So please don't hesitate to let me know. And John, interrupt me at any time. So I'm going to go into it. And John, if there's anything that visually is not showing up correctly, just interrupt me and let me know. So what we're going to go over today is the design basics of sintered stone. We're going to learn about this. This goes in 3 basic chapters. First, we're going to talk about the manufacturing process and the ingredients that go into the product, which directly translate into chapter 2, which is going to be the performance characteristics, and then chapter 3, which is going to be applications and pictures. So for your credits, you're going to get a general continuing education hour for lead professionals. This is IDCEC approved, so that covers everybody: ASID, IDC, IDEC, and IIDA. It's NKBA approved, so anybody in the National Kitchen and Bath Association, and then obviously anybody AIA as well too. So as I mentioned, we're going to be just covering the basics. We're going to be able to talk about what this material is used for, both on exteriors and interiors, why you would want to use it for these different types of applications, because assuming you don't know much about this product yet. We're going to be able to identify the different types and descriptions of what makes a sintered stone and why we just don't call it a ceramic or a porcelain. And that's primarily because of the manufacturing process, which results in the performance characteristics. And then, like I said, we'll look at some pretty pictures. So first, the question everybody asks is what is sintered stone? Why do you call it that? Why can't you just call it porcelain? You're driving me crazy. The analogy I like to use is it's the same reason that we don't call espresso a cup of coffee. Not because an espresso is better than coffee or any of those type of measures, but because an espresso is in a very specific prescription of ingredients, timing, heat, and pressure, all coming together in one specific way to make one specific product. That's probably the easiest way to describe what sintering is. And that's the first word we're going to look at in sintered stone. Sintering is the the engineering word for atomic diffusion. And atomic diffusion is just a big fancy word for heat, time, and pressure. Mother Earth uses atomic diffusion to make marble. They use a mountain over thousands, if not millions of years to take molecules like feldspar, quartz, and silica to slowly compress them over time until they get closer and closer together. We do that in a much more sophisticated way in a matter of hours instead of a matter millennia. So that's why we call it stone rather than a ceramic or a porcelain-based product. So those of us with design backgrounds, obviously we're in this type of career path because we are visual learners. So to understand how the sintering process works, I like to encourage everybody to sort of visualize an empty swimming pool. And what we're going to do with that empty swimming pool first at a molecular level is we're going to introduce quartz crystals and feldspar. And those are going to be like bowling balls. And through the compression and through the heating of the molecules, we're going to be able to essentially vibrate as many of those quartz crystals and feldspar bowling balls, as we'll call them, into that empty swimming pool as possible. Next, we're going to introduce the silica minerals or the glass minerals, which are going to be like golf balls. And again, we're using heat and pressure in order to vibrate those golf balls in between as much of the bowling balls as possible. And you can slowly understand where I'm going with this. Then we're going to introduce the clay minerals, which are going to be like marbles, again, vibrating in between, because the importance here of what we're trying to do is we're not trying to melt the molecules together. When you melt molecules together, what happens is they end up wanting to pull themselves apart and create a high degree of tension. That can be best observed through a sheet of glass. A sheet of glass is an all mineral-based product. And when you throw a rock through a sheet of glass, the whole thing shatters. And that's because of the amount of tension that those molecules are under. And we won't go too far down that rabbit hole because we'll get into that a little bit later. Just stepping back for a second too, I want everybody to understand specifically what a ceramic or a porcelain-based product is. And it's important to note that ceramics or porcelains mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people in a lot of different industries in all different parts of the world. So depending on what you do, how you do it, and where you do it, and who you are, all changes the definition. But the baseline definitions that we all agree to is a ceramic is a mineral-based product that's gone through a firing process that's changed its properties. So by definition, anything that's mineral-based, some masonry products, glass, all of these things could technically be considered a ceramic because it's a mineral-based product that's gone through a firing process that's changed its properties. A porcelain, as we define it here in North America in the tiling and surfacing industry, is a ceramic-based product that has a water absorption rate less than 0.5. Meaning that if you were to put this product in a body of water for 24 hours, pull it out and weigh it, it would weigh less than 0.5% its body weight added on top of what it already weighed. And Neolith, by comparison, is almost 1/10 of that. So that's why we don't try to make that comparison to porcelain, because we're on a completely different level than what a standardized porcelain-based product is tested to. Anyways, jumping back in, lastly, which makes this product very unique, not only in the ceramic and porcelain-based product industry or mineral-based product industry, but all surfacing, is it's 100% mineral-based. What I like to emphasize is by saying that is it's not a matter of what's in the product, but a matter of what's not in the product. So what you're not going to find is resins, chemical binders, adhesives, and what that means is, as an all-neutral mineral-based product, it's not a low VOC product, it's a zero VOC product. Another element that comes into this that we'll talk about is these natural pigments. So when you see that orange in a certain color, or the blue from the cobalt, that is because that's the natural pigmentation of cobalt. And those of us with design backgrounds also know that all colors are derived from minerals and they don't change color over time. So essentially making this product an ageless product. I don't know if anybody's ever been to ceramic or porcelain or mineral-based product facility. But if you haven't, I'm sure most people have been to a marble or granite shop locally where they fabricate countertops. A typical ceramic factory looks exactly like that, but just 100 times the scale. The floors are dirty and puddles of water. Everybody's wearing rubber boots. The machines are covered in dust and you don't even understand how they work. Obviously, when you look at our facility in these couple of images here, we're at a totally different level now in terms of how we fabricate and manufacture ceramic-based products. So it's a completely automated process. It's clean and much different than what you'd experience in a normal operation like that. A few things to take away from these images too. When I talk about sintering being an engineered process, and I'm Canadian, so I'm working on not saying process, if anybody catches me saying that. An engineered process, even though it's not spelled with an A. There's a few components there. So first you see the conveyor belt. It's a conveyor belt press. We're not pressing in formwork because of Newton's second and third laws of energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, and every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And that's why when we press in formwork, we're so used to what we used to call jumbo tile or other forms of press tile that are always warped and you can't have running bonds. That's because the energy gets trapped inside that material because it has nowhere to go once it's been pressed in that formwork. Like a conveyor belt press allows that energy to dissipate along the sides. Another significant component that you'll see in the first image is that it's a dry powder press, and you might have noticed that in the video as well too. We don't need to turn this into a slurry and waste water or create porosity in order to move that sand through the equipment. So it's much different than what you're used to in typical ceramic and porcelain manufacturing. Obviously, these components plus many other things that come together allows us to manufacture a product that's significantly larger and in a different scale than what we're used to seeing from anything else. So these conversions are a little bit off into imperial, but to simplify it, on the far left here, you've got a standard offering of a 4-foot by 12-foot slab. Right beside that, you've got roughly a 5-foot by 10-foot slab. We've got a slightly larger than 5-foot by 10-foot, and that's most often used in our thicker products so that we can get more than one countertop out of one slab. And then lastly here, you've got roughly about 8'6" by 4 feet. And that's primarily for the kitchen and bath industry. That's so that when we're doing bathroom walls, shower walls, we're not wasting 1.5 feet of the slab in order to accommodate an 8-foot or an 8'6" ceiling in a typical bathroom. The product is offered in varying thicknesses, and I kind of describe these thicknesses based on what you would use them for. You have an 1/8 of an inch, and I call that a veneer because primarily you see that used in cabinetry, millwork, some interior wall applications, but not too common here in North America. Your 1/4 of an inch, that's a tile, your floor tile, your wall tile, your building exterior tile. Your 1/2 inch is where we start getting into countertop thicknesses, but this is also going to be your high resiliency panel for ground level applications in a rain screen ventilated style application. In a traditional modified thin set application, you would still use the 1/4 inch. And then your 3/4 inch is going to be your countertop thickness that does not require an underlayment. Any questions there yet, John?
Yeah, Travis, just got a question in here about how do you control the quality and consistency of the minerals that you use, and can you ensure one run of material is the same as the next? And I think they mean the batch, that it's going to look the same consistency.
That's a really great question because we made a significant investment as a manufacturer last year and put in a 30 million euro mineral processing plant. We're one of the very few manufacturers of mineral-based products in Spain that we refine our own minerals. So what we do is we purchase the amount of minerals that we need from a quarry on an annual basis. And what we're able to do is make our mixtures, make our recipes, so to say, in a year's worth all in one batch. And then there will be from year to year differences in what we categorize as tonality. And then they get classified tonality 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's embedded in a barcode in the back of every slab. So in the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, any panel gets damaged, we're able to go back and track exactly what tonality that slab was so that we can find it somewhere in the world and put it in place. And when we do that, it's important to note that, again, this is an ageless product. So we're not color matching something that's going to weather or age, because it is essentially an ageless product, being 100% mineral based. I give really long answers to very short questions, so hopefully that covers it. Moving along, what's easily overlooked is a manufacturer such as ourselves. We offer about 40 or 50 different colors, but we offer those colors in different textures as well. So most common, you're going to see satin and silk. Satin is kind of like a honed stone, but it kind of has, like, I describe it as the texture of skin. It feels perfectly smooth, but if you look at it very closely, you'll see that there's very minuscule peaks and valleys. Silk, which is perfectly flat, perfectly smooth. River wash, which kind of has the texture of leathered or fired stone. A decor polish, which is a thin layer of quartz and silica that's been melted to the surface, and we'll touch on why that's important. And the most important polish that we offer, which is the nanotech polish, which is a true mechanical polish on the surface of the material. I will note that since this presentation was created, we do offer other varying textures as well now too. We have travertine textures, which are more linear, wood grain textures, true honed textures, and our most recent offering, which is called Ultra Soft, which, again, it's ultra soft, so it's the only way I can describe it. So now that we understand a bit about the manufacturing process, the fact that we're using a dry powder press, that we're using a conveyor belt press, I didn't mention it previously, but the firing process is not a drying or a baking like you would normally see in a ceramic or porcelain, because it's already a dry powder. The easiest comparison I can make to it is tempering it. When you temper steel, for example, you put it through a firing process. You're not changing any of the ingredients. You're not putting any coatings on it. And after the firing process, the tempered steel comes out with a completely different set of properties. And that's what you're going to find with sintered stone after it's gone through this firing process. And what it does essentially is that it allows those minerals to get even closer and tighter together. I had mentioned earlier that it vibrates at a molecular level. So all these molecules are moving very quickly so that they can compact as tightly as humanly possible without actually bonding together. So what does that mean? First, we're going to talk about it being resistant to scratches. And I like to say that we defy some of these phrases that we've used for other products, being scratch resistant, being graffiti proof. When we say sintered stone is resistant to scratches, it's a 7.8 on the most hardness scale, meaning only things that are greater on the most hardness scale are going to be able to scratch it. So at a 7.8, you're looking at diamonds and rubies and another piece of neolith, or the only thing that's ever going to scratch neolith. You can chop right on the countertop like you see in this image. Not only can you do that, but after you've dulled your knife, you can actually go and resharpen your knife right on the countertop. High heat and fire resistant. It can handle up to the sintering temperature of about 1200 degrees. Obviously, there's some variance there in terms of how you're heating it up, but what's important to emphasize in this again, and you'll hear me repeat myself over and over again, is this is an all mineral-based product. There is nothing organic, there is nothing volatile in the product. So it is not a low VOC, it's a zero VOC. So when you are blow torching squid, I don't know, with your friends, you're not worrying about contaminating your food because there is nothing volatile, even when subjected to high heats, that's going to come off the material. Waterproof is a great one. Everybody likes to do the red wine test. There's a much easier way to test any surface for its porosity, and go down once it opens up, if it isn't already, your local CVS, and buy medical grade mineral oil and food coloring, and just rub it on the surface and leave it overnight, and it will stain everything but glass and sintered stone. Whether you're talking about quartz, sealed stone, granite, you name it, everything is going to stain. Because, and to emphasize this, the the water absorption rate of Neolith, or sorry, Sintered Stone is 0.07, which is just slightly above glass. So intuitively, we know, none of us, I would hope, has drank a bottle of wine and then we check the glass to see if it's been stained by the wine. We intuitively know that even though we have this product, decorative product that we call stained glass, we're not actually staining glass. We're adding additives, other minerals to the glass in order to make it different colors. There is no way with a gas or a vapor or a liquid to penetrate glass. And it's the same is true for Neolith.
Hey, Travis, interrupting you here for a second. Someone's asking, how about using bleach-based products or Clorox bleach? Would that be an issue for Neolith surface?
Absolutely. Don't do that. It'll eat right through the material. No, just kidding. As a mineral-based product, you know as I know, that's the #1 question we get all the time, and there's a slide coming up on it. We get asked this all the time. So people use it to tile their pools, which often we're going to use a really strong acid like muriatic acid. We're going to use acetone to get off spray paint. We're going to use bleach in our home. The simple answer is if you acquire the chemical or the substance legally, you can apply it to Neolith. That's the simple answer. So the answer is yes. Freeze thaw resistant. The slab has virtually no expansion and contraction. Over 12 feet in length, which is our maximum length, you're only going to see 1/8 of an inch, taking into consideration both expansion and contraction. So it's not something you have to overly worry about, except for taking into consideration, especially in wood frame construction, that the substructure is going to expand and contract a lot more than our material. So that's why, particularly in applications of modified thin set, you're going to see specialty polymer-based modified thin sets that are specifically designed for large format tile and allow for that expansion and contraction within the substructure to accommodate for the non-expanding and contracting veneer on the surface. Hygienic, so very commonly used in the food service industry. It is NF certified and suitable for food contact. So we're seeing it more and more now in culinary environments, but obviously if you're cooking up some fish in your kitchen, you can put your fish right on the countertop and not worrying about it penetrating inside the material. Interesting enough, it's also the first product in just over 15 years to be OK kosher certified, meaning it's completely acceptable for Passover. We have a very simple process for I said it instead of process. For Passover, which is a matter of just preparing your vegetables, boiling hot water on the surface, preparing your fish, boiling hot water, preparing your meats. And it's nothing more complicated than that. And you don't have to rip it out after it's done. Here it is. So easy to clean, chemical resistant. There's virtually no chemical substance that you can apply to Neolith that is not, or sorry, Sintered Stone that is going to affect the product. In fact, I personally participated in a maintenance test for the Toronto Transit Commission when they did do their own tests with muriatic acid. I guess they're testing for it now because vandals now are going in and actually etching their tags or whatever it is into stone and concrete applications, which the muriatic acid eats away at it. And they had thrown epoxy and Sharpie ink and all this kind of different things. And when they splashed the muriatic acid on it, it started to bubble and pop on the surface of the Neolith. And then they just hosed it off, and all of the organic compounds had been eaten away, including the concrete that was directly underneath the slab as well too. And this is one property that you're just simply not going to find in any other surfacing product. And that is it being 100% UV resistant, meaning that when we put it through an ASTM 30-year accelerated UV test, it shows 0.00 change in color and tone, not 0.01 or 0.1, 0.00. And that is because of its 100% mineral-based content. It's not going to fade or discolor over time. It is essentially an ageless product. Thinking green and obviously hoping beyond green. because this is a thin, lightweight product, easy to transport, easy to handle, ageless, made of the most readily available minerals on planet Earth. We're not blowing up mountains in Italy to make this stuff. But on the standardized checklist of things you're looking for, it's comprised of all mineral-based product. There's no organic content, as I mentioned 100 times, meaning it's very high heats. It's 100% recyclable. We're proud to be the only manufacturer that's offering over 50% recycled content pre-consumer in all of our slabs. And this is very important. It is less than 0.08% porosity, meaning that is the integrity of the product. It is what we call in the industry a full body product, meaning the properties of the surface are the same properties that are on the edge that are on the back. So this isn't something that needs to be treated or coated over time. The integrity of the product is in the product itself, not in the surface treatment of it. I guess I could just show these photos. And obviously these are backed up with Green Guard certifications. All the other Green Build Council, 100% recyclable. Here we go. So LEED points earners for recycled content, for non-VOC, all these different great things. So what are other reasons why you'd want to use sintered stone? Well, like I mentioned, it's lightweight, easy to handle. You're covering a lot of surface area. Think of showers, you know, without grout joints, not having to get in there with that toothbrush before the mother-in-law comes and visits. Very easy to go over top of existing surfaces. Excellent application for asbestos containment rather than asbestos abatement. And those of us in the Northeast know the issues that we have with that. I will mention though that the benefit of the product is also its Achilles heel, which is the matter of that it's very large and very flat, which is a great in terms of application, but that just means that your substrate has to be perfectly flat, perfectly square. So when we are talking floorings, you are going to want to be using self-levelers, isolation crack membranes. With wall treatments, you do want to make sure that you have some tolerance that goes within our spec templates in terms of flatness.
Travis, while you're flipping through some of these slides, we did have a few questions come in.
Sure.
I've answered some that I thought were easy to answer that I could just give a quick answer. The first one that comes in from Timothy: do you have a standard set of details available for architects to use when detailing rain screens? And of course, I know the answer is yes, but you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I can elaborate it. Stepping back again from the proprietary Sintered Stone, and let me talk about Neolith for a second. We are a manufacturer that manufactures one product. And that product is used for rain screen applications, pedestal systems, elevator cabs, countertops, tiles. Long story short, we have to be a solutions provider as well as a great product manufacturer. So yes, we offer those. We offer those in-house from our own projects department. It's not something that we're putting you onto a third-party entity. And furthermore, we've created a standardized set of details on and Revit families on whatever your application might be, whether it's wood frame construction, wood frame with blocking, steel stud, cast in place concrete, CMU, you name it. We have the standardized detail for your specific application. And if by some magical application we don't, we'll help you guys put them together as a standard set as well, too. It's something we offer at no cost, along with our spec templates, our installation guidelines, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Second question here. Someone wants to know if the ability to shape, mill, or polish the edges, also how we can compare this product to Caesar stone, Corian, Zodiac, and against natural stone. I think this requires a kind of a longer in-depth, several questions here. So as far as shaping, you can shape, I don't know what you mean by mill to mill it thinner. I don't think you need to make it thinner. It comes as thin as 3 millimeters. So I hope I'm answering that correctly. As far as polishing the edges, you absolutely can polish the edges, just like you would with a stone or a quartz. Shaping it, you have options to cut it in radiuses. You can cut it in straight angles. You can also cut it with a miter cut, so you can actually miter the edge and build it up thicker. As far as how do we compare the product to sea stone, corian, zodiac, and natural stone, I think it's, as far as its physical properties, you could make an argument that it has the best performance when you compare physical properties that people typically look at for a product that they're using for floors, walls, countertops. And when I say the typical things that people look for would be scratch resistance, stain resistance, chemical resistance, heat resistance, maybe UV resistance. This is going to outperform every product that you mentioned there in varying ways. So hopefully we answered that one. Someone wants to know if you can use suction cups to install large format panels. Absolutely, you can. There are systems that we have that we even carry here at Marble and Granite that you could use. Price per square foot. I'm just going to get through a couple of, this one here. For the raw materials, and someone else did ask this, and I did answer it, typing an answer, so you can go back and look at that as well. But basically, it's going to be very comparable to a low to mid-priced granite or even a quartz for raw materials. Then, of course, depending on your application, labor and installation will vary accordingly. But the raw materials itself, that to buy sheets of Neolith from us or any distributor, it's going to be very, very comparable to those. And then the last one, I don't know if I completely understand. Someone, Elizabeth's asking, what is a pedestal system?
What is a pedestal system?
Yes.
It's a paving system that basically works as an inverted roof system for roofing. So what you would have is a concrete roof with a waterproofing membrane with some rigid insulation on top of that. And then instead of putting ballast on top of that, what you're going to use is these pedestals that the Neolith is going to sit on top of like tiles. And what it does is allow your roof application to be accessible for pedestrian use.
Okay.
I also elaborated on Timothy's question. I put my email address in there, so if anybody wants standardized details, spec templates, you can shoot me an email at t.conrad@neolith.com. You can also find everything in two different places. So everything as it relates to interiors, you'll find at neolith.com, and everything as it relates to facades, you'll find at neolithfacades.com. The facades webpage is really good because it's singular focused just on facade applications. The neolith.com is incredibly broad in terms of countertops, tiles, culinary work, case studies. So I would recommend that you do reach out to a local Neolith rep, especially when we're talking about interiors, because it can get a little convoluted when you try to find everything you need on the webpage. All right, moving along. So working with the material, locally we talked about this, that it's going to be used cutting with wet diamond saws. The only difference being is you're going to be using a continuous porcelain blade in lieu of a segmented granite or marble blade. Water jet equipment for cutting radiuses on your sink cutouts, for example. Handling the product, somebody asked about this. Is it done with suction cups? Absolutely. This product is significantly lighter than working with 20 pound per square foot marble or granite. So it is able to be handled like a sheet of glass. Working with it too, you have different options in terms of your edging details. You've got a V-grooved or a mitered fold. I do know people are always looking for the double OG or those kind of things. That is one limitation in terms of the fact that it is a relatively thin product, and we'll talk about that when we get into the images, because it does have to be folded and mitered, unless you're going to be polishing the edges, like you see here in the top one, a 20 millimeter edge. Reverse bevel, eased edge, all those different things. I'll save you some reading. The only thing you don't want to do, the Neolith is, or any quality surfacing product for that matter, is use steel wool on it. With our product in particular, the material is more dense than the steel wool. So if you start going at it with steel wool, you're actually going to melt the wool into the product, and you're going to have to get a blowtorch to take it off. But other than that, any normal detergents are going to take most things off of the product, just warm water and a wet cloth. But we can give you a standardized document if you have any concerns about particular things. All right, jumping into applications. And again, Jonathan, don't hesitate to interrupt me here if anybody wants to ask questions. I'm being honest, like you said, I can do this in my sleep. I'm used to the questions that people ask. So I'm just going to, in this type of environment, ask and answer the questions that most people will. So when you're looking at an application like this, you see the beton that we have on the floor. And then we've got the caliqueta on the island, the countertop, and the backsplash. Not only is the product significantly less expensive than caliqueta marble, which represents roughly about 40% of our global sales, it's even more economical when you start getting into these beautifully done backsplashes, because now we're able to introduce a 1/4 of an inch material instead of a 1/2 inch like you're going to have on the countertops. Here we have can everyone see my mouse?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got the iron series back here with a polished edge. You've got the waterfalled edge with the veining continuing on the island here. And what I like about doing a polished edge, even though we do a lot of this miter fold here in North America, from a sensible point of view, you're always going to see the material thickness at the sink cut out anyways. So that's just sort of my food for thought. And when you do start making this thicker and adding that 3 or 4 inch miter, you're talking about 1/3 of the cost. So what might be a $90 a square foot countertop could be upwards of $120 a square foot now when you start getting into all these miter folds. Especially when you get into this crazy stuff where you have like triple folds and all that veining lining up. So here we've got the Zaha stone, we've got the beton, which it looks like cast in place concrete, and then the caliqueta. That might be a statuario, actually. Don't worry, it won't all be kitchens. Fireplaces, again, you're not worrying about discoloration or staining here because of the heat rising. Here you've got textured finish, and you've got the actual burners right inside the countertop. Because again, you're not worrying about this staining, you're not worrying about discoloration or the effects of the heat. Like you would, somebody asked a question about what's the difference of it compared to like a quartz surfacing. Well, quartz are resin-based. It's kind of ironic that we call it quartz surfacing because over 50% of the product is resin and chemical binders. Why they're able to call it a quartz surface is because by weight, not by volume, is it majority quartz. But by volume, it's majority resins and chemical binders. So if you were to subject a quartz surfacing to UV damage, high heats, abrasion, it's going to perform just like any resin-based plastic.
Travis, what type of finish is this strata argentum in this picture? Someone's asking.
This is strata argentum river washed.
Okay. And while I've interrupted you, I want to make sure we answered. Elizabeth had the questions on the pedestal systems, which you talked briefly about.
Yep.
They're asking like a roof pedestal system, so the material has a loading capacity of, and that's the question. What is the loading capacity for this as a roof system?
Yeah, those are finite details that are above my pay grade. We'd have to get into it with someone from the engineering part of our projects department. But I can say the majority of the applications that we've done that were for commercial use we're limited to 24 inch by 24 inch tiles. And we have done some residential applications that were up to 30 inch by 30 inch. What the specific loading capacity of that is, I don't know off the top of my head, but If she wants to also shoot me an email at t.conrad@neolith.com, I'll get her the technical data sheet and we can go over it together and look at that, the details on that. Another reason that it's hard to answer that is because being a European-based company, majority of our documents are in metric. So they're in newtons per meter squared or cubed. So I have to do all the conversions to kilopascals. That, or you guys can just catch up to the rest of the world and start introducing metric.
That's not going to happen. What is the recommendation for gluing the Neolith to the millwork in this strata argentum where it's encased?
We have a couple big manufacturers that are going to use the 1/8 of an inch thickness, and they know how to handle it and work with it. But other than that, you're going to use any other standard epoxy-based resin to adhere it to millwork. And a lot of people here in North America, just because it's easier to work with and they're not doing it every day, they're going to be working with a 1/4 of an inch instead of an 1/8 of an inch. And then whether you use 1/8 of an inch or a 1/4 inch, whether you want a polished edge, Schluter also offers trim profiles in brass, in plastic, and in painted metals that you can use as a trim profile as well too.
Okay. I'm going to ask you another question here from Michael. Is saying on the 3/4 inch exterior panels as a rain screen, how is it supported? Do you use Z-clip or GERT system? What do we recommend? And I would say to Michael, and Travis, you can jump in afterwards, there are systems, fully integrated systems with clips or without clips. There's a proprietary system called this that Neolith has, that the Strong Fix system. So there are, depending on the application,
Yeah.
Everything's written about this. I don't know if there's anything more to answer at this point, but
That's the generalized answer. But having to give someone a more thoughtful answer, this is most commonly what you're going to see. So you're going to see what you called is a Strong Fix system. It's a dovetail cleat that goes into the back of the material. Unlike a keel or a Kyle bolt, it's a continuous cleat that runs the full length. Well, not necessarily the full length, a couple inches from the edge of the material. So you've got a mechanical cleat, plus you've got a chemical bond on these 3 flanges here. And this is all pre-manufactured in one of our facilities, either in Spain, in Dallas, Texas, or San Francisco, and soon to be in Wisconsin. And we can start getting into really unique detailing where we're able to offer, let me get to it here, you know, bonded corners, you know, all one piece that look really sharp. But again, there's a couple of different ways to skin it. There's chemical bonds, there is keel and Kyle bolt systems, there are applications where it's laminated to other substrates and then mechanically cleated. But this is the most common and what I try to recommend, primarily because of A, you have mechanical cleating, B, it's done in a controlled environment, C, the price, D, the price, and E, the price. You're going to be looking at a cost per application that's going to be lower than any other hidden fastener, high quality specialty veneer. You're going to be more in line with a high quality veneer like a Swiss Pearl or a Tactile with an exposed fastener. Instead, we're offering a hidden fastener. So you're going to be more in line with that. All right, I don't want to leave as much time at the end here for a little bit of Q&A as well too. So I'm just going to fast track through some of this. We've got through so many kitchens and bath. Iron Series is incredibly popular right now. It's one of those ones though you have to really see it in person. There's no denying, you know, the power of Calicut and Statuario. Like I said, it's 40% of our global sales. I'm not even going to try to pronounce what this color is. It's a Spanish word. So I embarrass myself. Here you've got the retro stone along with 2 flat colors. And again, what's really great about this product is once you get to understand how it's scored and snapped in the field, it doesn't matter if you're making triangles or trapezoids or parallelograms. Your only limitation is the fact that it has to be done in straight lines. You're not going to be confined to squares and rectangles. When you do get into these radiuses, then those are going to have to be done in a shop with a water jet. Our simplified versions of our rain screen systems are also completely compatible for simplified interior wall applications. Fire features, both interior and exterior. You're not worrying about staining, discoloring, displaces the heat. Oh, this is a really good picture. This is a new one here. So you can see the texture of the wood grain in this one, which is really special. Same thing done as a plank, as well as our Mar del Plata, which has a really cool texture.
Travis, as you're flipping through some of these, Jeffrey has used Neolith before in a kitchen countertop application.
Yeah.
And he's received complaints and issues about chipping the very delicate mitered edge, particularly around the undermount sink.
Sure.
And they said they used 3/8 inch material and mitered it to 1 1/4 inch edges. So 3/8, I'm assuming that was the, I mean, it's either 12 mil, which is about 1/2 inch, so it's probably the 12 mil. I will speak a little bit, and then Travis, feel free to interject. So, like any material, whether it be quartz, granite, marble, neolith, the more round the edge, the better it's going to perform and be better from a chipping and nick perspective on those edges. So if you have a mitered edge, obviously the fabricators are always trying to achieve a really nice tight mitered edge, so it looks like it's a solid piece and you don't really see that gap in the veining. This is a great picture that Travis has stopped here. If you look at that big wide vein on that left sink, and Travis is putting his mouse right there, will you see that line that almost looks like it's a white line roughly? That is very acceptable of how that will look with the proper mitered edge and that little bit of a round over to minimize the chipping. Now in the sink, typically around the sink area, it's rare that they miter, and I don't know if Jeffrey, if you actually did have someone miter the sink cutout, and it's usually not the case. Usually it just sits at its regular 12 millimeter thickness in this case. Again, rounding that edge over is going to help minimize chipping greatly. And our staff here is constantly preaching that to clients with whatever that they choose. Unfortunately, the design preferences nowadays are a very sleek square edge. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Travis.
Yeah, just that's why it happens. I mean, it's being tugged in both directions, where everybody wants to minimize this white line as possible. But the more you are accepting of this white line being there, because it's not, I talked about being a full body, it's not a through body yet. We're working on it. We're going to be introducing third quarter some of our colors as through body, but because some aren't, like this color in particular, the more accepting you are of that white line, the less likely you are to get chipping, because of that measures the amount of bevel you're going to have, which should be at bare minimum 2 to 3 millimeters.
Yeah, and I would like to also add, what we see, and this is again marble and granite's personal opinion, but I'd like to share it with everybody here, is we see the best value of using Neolith as countertops in its thin state. We're trying to push the idea from a design perspective. It looks cool, it looks sleek, it's modern. It also, from a performance perspective, without having to put that mitered edge there, you just have to round over that the edging, just like you would almost do like a half round or a half bull nose. And in that application, you're really going to have a tremendous performance. I actually had Neolith in my kitchen for few years, and I did it in just a 12 millimeter thickness, or I like to say thinness. It looked very sleek and transitional. I had it rounded over, basically a half round, and I never had issues with chipping. And we abused it with a family of 5. So
yeah, and this is a good example. This is a rain screen, but this is why you can see why miters are vulnerable here, because if something were to impact here, you had this tiny little bit of material here versus if this was just squared off and rounded, right? So it's more vulnerable. I'm just going to race through the end of this here so that we can continue to have this conversation. If I can find my presentation. Just because I wanted to end on one thing that's easily overlooked, and that's the exterior applications and exterior cladding. We did talk about rain screens, and its ability to be complex geometric in terms of not being squares and rectangles, but also its ability to be non-porous, used around pools, used around fire features. Complex geometry here, we're able to miter returns that not necessarily are 90 degrees. We can do some of this kind of unfolded architecture. And this is one of my pride and joys, where we just completed the Chase Center for the Golden State Warriors. And as a Canadian and a Toronto Raptors fan, I got to take their money and their championship. So it was a win-win for me. Also, too, I like to highlight this application as well, too, because as a high-quality, high-durability, very aesthetically pleasing product, the number one thing that we always get asked is, what's the price, what's the price, what's the price? And it varies. It's difficult to always have to give that answer. That depends on the application. But this alone, we've done about 300 La Quinta hotels around the US now, and with another 100 more to go. This should emphasize to you that if it's economical enough for a privately owned La Quinta hotel, it should be economical enough for just about any job you're going to do. But there are cost measures that do make it more expensive. So here we've got another great application here with Nordstrom's. For a sense of scale, those vertical intervals are 5 feet. So in some instances, you can see that you have a 5-foot panel with a 10-foot return, or a 10-foot panel with a 5-foot return, however you want to see it. But that's all mitered, so that joint there is not an open joint. It's been mechanically mitered in the factory, and you wouldn't even know that there was a joint there. Here's 570 Broome Street, which is in Manhattan, right by the Holland Tunnel, which is just recently completed. And we'll end there. I think I'm right past my time limit.
Yeah, another question just came in, and thank you, Travis, for that presentation. Christian's asking that they put Neolith Zaha inside a fireplace and it cracked from the heat. It was 6 millimeter. Did you say it was okay to put it inside the fireplace walls?
No, it's not okay to put it inside the fireplace wall. Well, I shouldn't say that. It takes a tremendous amount of thought to put it in. Where it does happen, and again, when I say it has very minimal expansion and contraction at down to 1/8 of an inch, that matters when you're directly abutted to something. So if you're going to have, say, Neolith on a 90-degree butted into Neolith, even if it expands 0.5 millimeter, the likelihood of it cracking over time becomes very high. So you have to take into consideration the manufacturer, our recommendations in terms of your detailing and how you would allow for that expansion and contraction, so that you're not looking at material expanding against itself. Because it's going to expand and it's going to have nowhere to go. So it cracks.
Yeah. So Margaret wants to know how long Neolith has been around. Margaret, Marble and Granite has been carrying Neolith since 2011, and I believe Neolith started in 2009. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2009. We had our 10-year anniversary last year, and but it's important to note that the owners of Neolith are the original owners of Levantina, which is the Esteve family from Spain. They are a stone dynasty family, multi-generational. They have been doing natural stone forever. So that's sort of the clout that we bring with this into the man-made product environment, whereas our ability to understand natural stone, the veining, what stones to offer, what the industry is looking for, what's hard to get, it comes from conflict areas that we can replicate. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. The miter in the Nordstrom project, was that done by Neolith at the plant or on site? Christine has that question.
That was done by a third-party fabricator out of just outside of Toronto, Canada.
Okay.
But when we do standard projects and mitering, like the 570 broom, that was all done in the factory in Spain.
Okay. And price range for the square foot, Margaret's asking. Again, raw material wise, it's very comparable. If you're in real numbers, depending on the thinness or the color, you could be in the $10 range a square foot, $9-10 range a square foot, and the highest is going to max out in the, if you go with 3/4 inch, the most exotic pattern and expensive, you might be in the $30 a square, $35 a square foot.
Yeah, to keep it mid-range, I always say if you're looking at material, you're looking at $10. If you're looking at material with a system, you're looking at $20. And if you're looking at material and a system up on the wall, you're looking at $40. So just keep doubling the number. That way you have a safe budget. Obviously, that's going to be a little higher when we're talking about New England, union labor, complex applications, site equipment.
Yep. Elizabeth's asking, is the installation difficult for kitchens, houses? Do you need a highly qualified installer? Elizabeth, I would tell you that we have a network of certified Neolith installers where they've been trained by Neolith technicians that we bring in periodically to do trainings, and they train multiple times. It's really not anything so difficult from a stone fabricator who already has machinery. The thing that they have to do, there are a few little tricks that they need to remember. There are some tooling changes, so they don't have to change the machine. They have to change the tool, so they have to change their blade. They might have to change their milling wheel. They may have to change their to drill holes, their core bits. Otherwise, I would say the biggest change for these guys is handling. They're used to handling thick, heavy, rigid material. And if they think that they can handle it the same way, that's where we've had the toughest time. And it's not really a training, it's practice. They have to remember how you handle this. It's lightweight. You can't always use the same type of clamps that you use, that you would pick up granite. You want to be able, this does have some flexibility to it. So that is probably the biggest issue that we find is the handling. Once they've figured out and they've been trained, and we work with a whole network of fabricators. If you have a specific fabricator that hasn't been trained that you would like to work with, we can arrange training for them. As far as when you say installation of kitchens or houses, I don't know if you mean houses for the exterior, for a facade type of, or did I answer that question? I'm not sure. Well, I don't know if we've answered a bunch of questions here. I don't know if.
Yeah, let's. I'm just going to go ahead and put my email address again, in case anybody has any specific technical questions. John, if you want to put yours in there too. We'll stick around to answer a few more questions, but if people are done, you're welcome to go. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you guys sort of participating in this and having to embrace something different. It's, us as manufacturers, we still need to be able to get awareness out about our products and our offerings, and to have a community of customers that participate in these type of virtual activities allows us to continue to do what we do, and we're greatly appreciative of that. I don't know if it was clear through the BSA, but I believe they're going to email something to you guys, and that will get you all checked in for your registration for your credits. I did see the list, and I saw a lot of AIA, but I can't remember seeing a lot of ASID or LEED. So if you do need those credits, please resubmit your information as well too.
Okay. And anybody that's looking for information, you will get a follow-up email from us thanking you for attending, and then we can address individual needs as they come in. If you need a library updated, if you need samples, if you need brochures, a presentation to your staff, any and all of the above, we're more than happy to do that for you. And again, thank you on behalf of all of us here, the Boston Society of Architects, Neolith, myself, and Marble and Granite. We appreciate you, you joining us today. And if you ever want to come and look at many different applications, just come down to our location in Westwood. We have a rain screen section of our facade. We have large format flooring. We have thin countertop as a kitchen. We have it as a backsplash, and we also have it in a bathroom, walls, floors, and countertops, as well as just being able to see full sheets in our showroom, in our slab showroom. So we welcome you to come down here, and I'm more than happy to answer all your questions. So thanks again, and we'll stick around for a few more minutes if any other questions come in. Otherwise, feel free to leave and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.